Welcome. Today we are going to be talking about the mysteries of Joseph and the coat of many colors from an esoteric perspective. Now, Joseph represents the Christic principle within. The coat of many colors, as the white light, separates into the 7 different lights, the 7 planets, or the 7 Sephiroth. This character in Genesis takes on an archetypal importance when we understand that it's talking about a physiological, alchemical, and astrotheological inner mystery that, when understood correctly, opens up the mysteries of the existential bodies of man and woman. Now, briefly in the story, Joseph, son of Jacob, being the 13th of 12 brothers, 12 signs of the zodiac, 13th being the sun itself, the 13th brother being the sun. Could also say Joseph represents Saturn as well as the sun. Joseph is favored by Jacob. He is the favorite of the 12, and the 12 are jealous of him. The 12 brothers are annoyed by Joseph. He's always having dreams and having internal visions. And he had a vision that the 12 brothers would bow down to him, that their wheat and their chaff would bow down to his. And they took this as like him being arrogant or prideful. And Joseph just being his innocent self. Joseph represents the higher soul aspect, the inner imagination quality that's slowly kindled within our consciousness. The brothers decide to throw him in a pit because they're tired of him and his superiority. Jacob says that he, favors him the most. He gives him a coat of many colors. So they throw him in the pit in the same way, Jesus is thrown into, goes down into the tomb or the underworld. The winter solstice occurs. So as we see, Joseph is the son getting flung into the pit now by the brothers. And Joseph is then sold because they don't want to kill him. They're like, we must not kill him, right? Because the son doesn't completely die. It regenerates as it continues. So the brothers end up selling him out of the pit to slavery. And he becomes enslaved in an area, but he goes to Egypt in the same way we all become in bondage to Egypt. The principle of Joseph, or the light within, gets imprisoned in Egypt or bondage. But in this case, in the same way Moses started utilizing his higher faculties in such a way it caught the attention of the Pharaoh, and the Pharaoh wants Joseph to be in charge of all the household. He's Saturn, the sun, he's the grand architect, very capable. Joseph is now reigning in Egypt. He is the lord of the land. What a twist of the story. Well, the lower emotional nature, the woman of the Pharaoh, ends up trying to seduce Joseph, and when Joseph declines, because he's the higher mind, he's the seed within, she represents the lower emotions. The Pharaoh represents the carnal aspect of the king of the carnal aspect, right? The part of our faculties of the mind that is in charge of the material realm, Egypt, the body. His wife, who tries to seduce Joseph, is the physical emotions, tries to drag the light down. Joseph declines but still gets in trouble by the Pharaoh, is then locked up. He's able to interpret the dreams because he's awake in the astral plane. Joseph represents the part of us that begins to awaken, the imagination faculty. He's always having dreams that come to pass because he says that the dreams are inspired by God, which is Kether of the tree of life on the top. So Joseph, let's talk about the symbolism behind the coat of many colors that Jacob gave to Joseph. On an anagogical, allegorical level, the coat of many colors represent the higher bodies within that are developed. When one can then enter into the mental plane, one could enter the emotional astral plane. We could enter into the counter space realm or the causal plane consciously. These bodies are nourished by the Christic light that descends into Kether. And that light comes from Kether and manifests in Tiphereth. So we're talking about this light here from Kether, the top of the tree. It gives the father, mother principle, which manifests the child, Joseph, the favored son. And these represent the Christic body, the cosmic body, the spiritual body, the mental body, the astral body, the etheric and physical. Of course, the white light of Kether splits into 7. These 7 forces and 7 intelligence are shown in Thomas H. Burgoyne, Light of Egypt. Kingdom, Mikael, power, beauty, Anael, love, foundation, Gabriel, feuduncenty, which is like fertilization, conception. Justice, Cassiel, patience. Mercy, Zachariel, greatness. Splendor, Raphael, intelligence, Mercury. Victory, Samael, strength, Mars. Here's the 7 colors of the 7 light spectrum: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, red. And the 3 eternal principles of God: live, love, light, or father, mother, child. The 3 primary principles that manifest the 7. These 7 are the code of many colors. The light spectrum manifests in these 7, splitting from the white light. That white light would be akin to the Kether, manifesting into the duality, but that duality has a 12 or a 7, and that manifests as the character Joseph, which is the Christ within. We read from God, man, Word made flesh. 13, the operations of wisdom, because we must understand the 13 children of Jacob and how this relates. The number 13 is unlucky for ignorance only. All so-called laws of nature may be reduced to 13. The origins and their application vary widely. Thus, the origin of 12 is a circle or completeness, or without break or sin. That is complete. All operations that produce something may be called 12, being complete in order to produce. The product is therefore 13. Thus, all machines or factories symbol 12 and the product 13. Joseph being 13. There are 12 constellations, and the sun being the 13th. The human body, there are 12 functions of the human body, and the seed or psychophysical germ born in the solar plexus every 29 and a half days. So then there are 12 moons and a fraction in 365 days. The pneumogastric nerve, vagus nerve, that comes down from the cerebellum, which is a cross, or the medulla oblongata, branches out at the lungs and is called the tree of life, which has 13 letters. There are 12 mineral salts in the blood, and the blood itself is the product 13. And it says, and David took more wives and concubines at Jerusalem, and David begat more sons and daughters. Here follows the names of the 13 children. And here's the 13 children of Jacob. The 29th and 30th chapters of Genesis record the birth of 11 sons and 1 daughter, Dinah. The 35th chapter records the birth of Benjamin, the 12th and 13th son. Jacob in Hebrew is circle, or to follow after, also represented in Hebrew symbology by a circle of men, each with one hand holding the heel of the one in front, and thus describing a circle. The esoteric meaning is based on the marvelous operation of the wonderfully made human body. All the parables, fables, or allegories of the human organism are related to 13. Moses, Joshua, Jesus Christ, and Joseph are all characters of the scriptures, are all symbols of the psychophysical seed that is born in or out of the solar manger in the center of the body. So here we have Joseph, who is now thrown in a pit by his brothers because he's favored by Jacob. Jacob represents the inner father within. Joseph has a higher mind, which is envied by the negative impulses of the 12 zodiac. The 12 brothers symbolize the negative polarities of the 12 zodiac. And we have to fight. We have to overcome and transmute the vices of each zodiac into virtues. Joseph is the force in which we do that. Joseph, the seed that we rise within by maintaining the Christic energy and following the higher mind allows us to regenerate the body. And of course, because that intelligence is the sun and Saturn, because it goes down to Egypt where they sell him to be a slave, the Pharaoh even makes use of him, and he ends up taking over, being the lord of the land, overcoming the physical nature, but also being part of that physical nature. Later on, the 12 brothers end up coming back, later on, when he's 30 years old. At 30 years old, Joseph, just like Jesus, 30 years old. 30 years old, they come back and they're trying to get the famine because Joseph predicted the famine. The Pharaoh wanted to give him even more rulership when Joseph was able to interpret the famine that was going to come. He said that there was going to be 7 years of peace and 7 years of famine. This represents the 7 chakras opening, utilization of the 7 forces of the 7 planets, but also preparing for the dark night of the soul for the sine wave because it goes down. When it goes down, you have to overcome those vices. Because he predicted this and he's able to maintain the energy, because they maintain all of the food or the grains, which represents the seed, that conservation of energy helps overcome the famine. So because Joseph is interpreting these dreams, he is organizing. He's making peace with the 12 brothers that come to him in order to buy food, not knowing that it's the brother that they cast into the pit, that it's the same brother that they tried to kill or sell to slavery. They beg for his mercy, and Joseph ends up forgiving them. But we have to understand that this story is Kabbalistic and alchemical. And when he's thrown in the pit, obviously it's the sun in the winter solstice, when the sun descends into the pit. And when he comes out of the pit and regains the lord of the Pharaoh, is when the sun begins to rise. The coat of many colors is the white light, separating to the 7. And these all have a personality trait. We have black, Saturn for patience, blue, calmness, green, healing, beauty, yellow, intelligence, Mercury, red, power, Mars. These are the forces of the soul. This is the coat of many colors that Jacob bestows upon the inner monad, who is Joseph. And the 7 emanate from the 3, the top 3, which is wisdom, love, and crown on the tree of life, the top 3. These 7 manifest from these 3. As you can see, each one represents an archangel and a power and influence, as well as a planet. So when we become Josephs and we manifest the aspects and archetype of Joseph within, he helps us to develop these 7. Power, love, fidency, patience, greatness, intelligence, strength. We have to learn to become strong like Mars, to become warriors, and also to temper our swords and to overcome our vices of anger. We have to invoke the intelligence of Mercury to become studious, to be splendorous. On the tree of life, intelligence is represented by splendor on the tree of life. And of course we have Jupiter, which counteracts the Saturn aspects of Arcelio Ficino talks about how Saturn is very dampening, depressive, and melancholy, and Jupiter helps to counteract that. During this time, there's a lot of Saturn energy, and we need to invoke Jupiter. So we need to put on our coat of many colors and utilize the planets like a toolbox or a magician's toolbox to be able to unlock certain keys in the psyche to overcome certain ailments. If we have too much depression or melancholy, let us transmute it through Jupiter, through mercy and greatness. Through the Gabriel, the fidency or the fertilization is our ability to give birth to new aspects of ourself within by transmuting the waters. Gabriel rules the waters, foundation. And of course, Mikael, the kingdom, the power, the sun, to utilize the power that is given to us each morning. And we must transmute it into our central nervous system so that it feeds these bodies. And that's how we manifest the coat of many colors within. So Joseph in Hebrew means remover and to increase. As the seed is transmuted, the energy within increases, the charisma increases, the light within increases. The 7 chakras are within. Now the 12 brothers, before they throw Joseph in the pit, they strip him of his coat. This represents the animal nature or the negative qualities of the zodiac, stripping us of our coat of many colors. It takes place when we lose our imagination faculties. through negative behaviors or aspects of the material realm that make us drain our nervous system through various means of thought, emotion, or action through the sexual act and expelling. As we degenerate this, we lose our ability to have imagination. We cast Joseph into the pit. Joseph is the aspect of ourselves that makes us feel okay, that checks upon us. It's the archetype within us that's part of Christ that comes and checks on us and makes sure that we're okay. He goes off to check on the brothers to make sure that, they're doing okay and tending the sheep, and they all just want to kill him. How many times does this aspect come within us and we just want to take it out, or we let the lower aspects of our psyche destroy Joseph and put him in the pit? We sell him to slavery, we indulge into the material nature, and we become very good at it. As intelligent creatures from the light, we're able to organize the material realm in such a way that we can be leaders and kings. See, in this way, Joseph becomes a king, but then he transmutes and becomes a priest when he forgives the 12 brothers when they come. I recommend everyone read Genesis chapter 37 through 50 and see this from an alchemical point of view. The story starts out as Joseph being 17. 17 equals 8. 8 is the sun. Joseph also means Saturn, Joset. We know that Saturn is time. It's the builder. So that's why the Pharaoh hired him to become the builder and the Lord of the land. Because this aspect of this duality between the light and the darkness. Joseph has both. He's working on himself. The story is all about you and all of us. The 12 brothers chase away or sell Joseph. That happens when we cut off from our higher mind. And Joseph is the inner son or the higher self. So the brothers are the lower mind and the left brain. Joseph would be the right side or the son of Jacob. Jacob being the heel catcher. Joseph is the refined seed. As we can see, we sell the seed to the material nature. The brothers are tired of the innocence. Where the innocence manifests in the body as imagination and innocence, the carnal entropic forces seek to kill it. Joseph is a dreamer or someone who's wide awake in the astral plane. Let's pause this real quick. So, Joseph is the aspect of consciousness that awakes in the astral plane, is able to see the reflections of the higher spheres, and is able to understand and interpret synchronicities. With this knowledge, we begin to be able to become aware and work on our defects. He's always trying to change the way his brothers perceive him, or the way that his brothers are lazy or slacking in different ways, and tries to encourage them to change from the lower mind to the higher mind. So Joseph is the faculty within, when once awakened, allows one to communicate with the higher realms through dreams. So you have Joseph being the right side, the sun, Jacob the heel catcher, Joseph the refined seed. The unconscious mind gives symbols for the conscious mind to digest. So Joseph, being the faculty within once awakened, allows one to communicate with the higher realms through dreams and be able to perceive things from a higher dimension. So that's why he's hated by the 12 brothers, favored by the Father. So the Father always favors him. The same way like Jesus is favored by the Father. Or because the cerebrum, the Father, the ram, produces the Son, the favored seed. And they decide not to kill him, so they decide not to kill the seed, even though they throw him in the pit, the tomb of the winter solstice, only that he is reborn because he goes to Egypt and he becomes the ruler of the land because he's so intelligent and smart that the Pharaoh is like, wait a minute, who is this man? God is with him. I'll let him be over my domain. So Joseph, to increase, is the seed being multiplied, intelligence always increasing, your imagination faculties always increasing. He's a reader, he can write, he's endowed with the forces of the planets. Sun being, the intelligence of the sun and Mercury. He has the coat of many colors, so he's able to utilize the different intelligences and forces of the celestials, and in that way be favored in the eyes of the higher spirit. So the 12 brothers end up coming back to him once they sell him to slavery in Egypt. Once he's in Egypt and the Lord of the land at age 30, remember, starting at 17, now he's 30, he's the Lord of the land of Egypt, who he got sold to. The 12 brothers end up coming back to get food, To get the spiritual nourishment, the lower mind tries to creep back into our lives, tries to, seek reconciliation. Joseph regains higher compassion, forgives them, and lets them know it was God's will that he was cast into slavery to prevent the coming famine, because he predicted it. He told the Pharaoh that the famine was going to come, and he was able to interpret the dream and prevent it. This is basically explaining how the higher mind of the individual starts conserving energies to understand that it must conserve the energy to go up the 7 chakras, the 7 journeys, because the 7 famines are the vices, and we have to overcome each of the 7 vices in each chakra. Each chakra has to be polarized from negative to positive. And there's a coat of many colors. It's the inner Sephiroth of the soul. The inner Sephiroth lights of the soul shine vividly, different colors, different auras, each one having to do with a different faculty. At the top we have the Christic body, the immortal individual higher ego. Then we have the cosmic body, the effulgence. The spiritual body, the higher self. The mental body, the mind. The astral body, the emotions, and the dimension of like your little avatar that you have when you go to sleep and dream. The etheric realm, which is the warmth and energy. And then the physical, which is the chemicals, the tissues, and the body. That physical is the physical of the Malkuth at the bottom, and the Christic body would be at the top. That Christic body manifests as the spiritual body in Tiphereth. Tiphereth is beauty. Joseph represents imagination. The initiate begins to utilize his imagination to see beauty in the physical realm and extract the truth of God, the truth of the Creator, and rise up the tree of life to reunite with his father Jacob. There's a reunion at the end of the story where he's reunited with Jacob. The seed goes to Egypt, rules over the lower nature, liberates, conserves the energy for the famine, and rises back up to his father, Israel. Jacob's name is changed to Israel. Isis, Ra, and El, left brain and the right brain, producing the consciousness, which is Jacob. When Jacob produces the seed, which is Joseph. Joseph has the coat of many colors because it develops the chakras within the body. Joseph gives us the ability to organize the astral. The astral is the inner psyche of us. And the best book that Santos recommended was The Planets Within. And I've been reading this book, and it's helped me understand the inner archetypes and the inner soul and spirit of the universe. It's basically saying like that time when Christmas is around, the snow, the light is going closer to, the days are going to become longer. But we've gone through a dark period, but there's a spirit in the air. There's a vibe, a lightness of the heart. These different aspects of, different aspects of our reality give us these different feelings within, and each one are a different archetype and spirit. So each body is related to a planet, and the planets within relate to psychological phenomena. And if we have, for example, like too much Saturn, which would be like melancholy or depression or too much justice, we could counteract that with Jupiter. And in this book, it was said that the ancient Pythagoreans would wake up in the morning, dress in bright clothes, and sing chants and hymns and poems to Jupiter. They would awaken the poet, the inner poet within, that would help them utilize these different colors of the spiritual nature of yourself, because we're so much more than just meat suits. We have all of these different psychological, spiritual phenomenon that take place within us. That's why it's kind of considered like the kingdom within. I'd like to read some from the planets within, just briefly. In Ficino's, this is Marsilio Ficino, the planets within. In Ficino psychology, illness comes in the form of monotheism, life dominated by, when he's saying monotheism, he's meaning to be dominated by only one planet. For example, such a domination could appear as an inclination towards depression, Saturn, a constant preoccupation with relationship and sexuality, Venus, or an abiding and interfering temper or aggressiveness, which is Mars. Ficino advice is twofold. Find a way to offset the tendency by inviting an opposite kind of spirit, and at the same time experience the powerful daemon to the hilt. For Ficino himself, the daemon that plagued him was Saturn. As prominent in his horoscope as in his life, Ficino followed his own advice, taking practical precautions against the increased Saturnian spirit, while at the same time entering deeply into Saturn's heaviness. So we have to go deeply within our aspect. Joseph had a bit of pride. He was Jacob's favorite son. He had the coat of many colors, but he goes down to Egypt and works on his pride. He works on that planet, Jupiter, and manifests the disciplines of Saturn and the forgiveness of the sun. It's a really beautiful story. And the latter, the coat of many colors, represents the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, da, each note being a realm, a reality. On Jacob's ladder, his father laid his head upon a rock and saw angels ascending and descending on the ladder. Now that is out and within. Within it's the spinal column, the angelic angles of light transmuting up and down. The forces that descend impulse us to action. The forces that ascend force us to non-action. And it's about balancing these and overcoming the vices of each particular planet. That's why it's so important to understand your zodiac, is so that you can understand how to use alchemy and counteract each of these aspects of your soul, just like Fashino mentioned. So, in order to allow Jacob to grant us the coat of many colors, we have to work on ourselves. And when we retain ourselves and serve the highest good and abstain from the animal action of expelling the energetic forces, whether it be mentally, emotionally, or on the sexual plane, just willy-nilly, then that energy is not able to be converted to develop each of these 7 planets within ourselves and ignite our Sephiroth, so that we too can be on the initiatic journey of all of these characters, and so that each character represents an archetype within us, the inner master within us, or the Christ principle, the logos, or the word. And that word or logos emanates from these 3 principles, Kether, Chokmah, Binah, the higher trinity, right? You have the Elohim, the male-female aspect, splitting into 2, the father and the mother, or Saturn and the zodiac. And these come together and form the word. As the air, Aleph, in Hebrew, the air, fertilizes, boom, the vocal cords and produces the word, which is the child. So the word's the Christ or the logos. And that word emanates. And that word is the seed that is born in the plexus, or Joseph, who's cast into Egypt. And then he rules over Egypt because we conquer. Though we see the similarities between these stories and how each one represents an initiation. And when we initiate ourselves, we allow our mind to purify the 4 elements, earth, fire, water, air, and allow ourselves to comprehend and transmute the 12 zodiac intelligences to fix our 12 cranial nerves, to become purified. So all the 12 brothers are ignited, right? At the end of the story, they all become redeemed by Joseph the seed. So next time we'll be going deep into this to understand more about esoteric initiation and how it relates to the Bible and how the Bible is alchemy and various levels. All right, well, thanks, guys. Have a good one.